Now get your lazy butt over here and help me!
So much for sisterly love, dear boy.
The genesis of the project really kind of started with Tony Causey, who is one of our producer and one of our partners. She is a novelist with the Bobby Fay series, and she asked Andre and I, Andre's our cinematographer, to help her do a promotional video for her first novel. We had an absolute ball making the video. We had Damon Lepre and Jeff Rouchet in that video, loved working with them and loved the chemistry that they had together. And I said, when I write my next screenplay, I'd like to feature these guys. The story was really kind of back engineered. I wanted to show off the Louisiana saltwater marsh. People are very familiar with the freshwater swamps, but this place is near and dear to me and beautiful, but slow. So I said, you can't just have the swamps, you need some conflict, and which kind of led to some violence. And then my mind is like, I don't like violence for violence sake. Let's make it a redemption story.
It's my job.
Our main character, Paul, is at one of those very, very low moments when he is suddenly given an assignment that he does not fully realize the repercussions of, and when he's in the midst of it, he is at a turning point in his life, and who he has to decide of the people that he has grown to love, who dies, and how is he going to live with that decision. So it is, I think, a beautiful Southern story, a little bit of a crazy assassin story all rolled into one.
Your nose a bitch, son.
And action.
This movie was probably one of the hardest movies for me to prepare for. It introduced a character that I haven't been able to prepare or play before. You know, as you notice, Paul Matthews doesn't really have too much dialogue, although he's in 97% of the movie. You know, he's got a bunch of one-liners. In the acting game, I mean, that's pretty much the hardest, you know, if you have all these one-liners and you don't really get to establish yourself with, you know, a beginning, middle, and an end in terms of like a paragraph, you know, if you're just shooting out one lines, it can be difficult. You want to help?
Well, I didn't want to get my pants wet if I didn't have to.
Well, excuse me.
Damon did a phenomenal job with the role of Paul. It calls for a lot of introspective,
Action.
a lot of physical fighting and intensity and that sort of thing, a lot of subtext, and the ability to do things with your hands. He's from Louisiana, he has been in boats. He was actually driving and operating in tidal waters with stiff 20-mile-an-hour currents pulling through there. Did a phenomenal job, especially when the boat was only running on 3 cylinders some of the time.
Cajuns moved from Acadiana, from the Nova Scotia area, down to survive in the swamps, and they trapped and they hunted and they fished, and they had to depend on one another. They had to grow very insular and cliquish in order to defend themselves against forces that would come from the outside and destroy them. But even though they became that way, once you came into their group, you became family and you became the protected, just as any other family member would be. And this sort of culture, this sort of heritage is not what you necessarily find elsewhere in the country. There's a richness of South Louisiana that we don't get to see very frequently in movies. A lot of times what we'll see is New Orleans-based culture. The Creole, the jazz, the nightlife, the dark underbelly of New Orleans. We'll see that sort of culture, which is different than the Cajun culture and the trappers and the fishermen of South Louisiana.
Much to my surprise, when I turned the script in, she said, "This is great." We decided that being a low-budget film, we would stick to our guns, we would shoot the film that we wrote, we would plan it the best that we could, and that's really what we did.
Paul is looking for a simple life. He's looking for a reason, and that's the reason to live.
He's jumping to his Piro headed down the bayou. He's got the fishing line strung across the Louisiana River. Gotta catch a big fish for us too. Sitting trapped in the swamp, catching anything he can.
Gotta make a living, he's a Louisiana man.